Hello guys, welcome to episode 7 of this course where we are learning how to implement CRUD operations in a front-end application developed using Vue. In the previous episode, we added Pinia to our application in order to manage the state of the app in a centralized, place, which was the store. So if you haven't watched the previous episode, please make sure you do that. In this episode, I want to refactor the views of the application to start using the store. So to kind of show you what we did in the previous episode, if you take a look at the code right now, this is the store, the single store that we have right now, right? So we have, some actions for communicating with the API, which is of course running on our local machine. And if you take a look at the, views of the application, for example, add view, you will realize that there are some, functions that are communicating with that backend API. Of course, we want to refactor these because right now we have put all of our, API communication logic inside of that store. So we can remove these, right? And we can refactor these views in a way that they uh, use the store. Instead of communicating with the API themselves, they need to fetch the data they want from the store. And the store is responsible for managing the state of the application. And other components and views that want to, of course, get access to the state, they need to get the state or the data they want from the store. So this is the refactoring that we want to do in this episode. Refactor views to use Pinia store. The first update we are going to make is to the home view. So if you take a look at the home view right now, you will see that we have these two functions, fetch employees and delete employees, right? They are, communicating with the backend API. And for example, the delete function is used here. And the fetch function is used when the component is mounted, right? And of course, when you delete an employee. And then the fetch employees populates this reactive variable, and that reactive variable is used here. So let's see what refactoring we need to make, right? If you take a look at the li section, the refactoring we need to make, the first refactoring is to not iterate the reactive variable called employees inside of the page or view, but to fetch the employees array which has been defined in the store. So this is one refactoring that we need to make. So in this case, this employees, we don't need this this reactive variable anymore. We need to get the data of the employees, right, from the store. So I take you to the store here. So this is the array that we want to iterate. So this is the first refactoring that we need to make in the home view. And then the rest of the code will be very similar, right? But what about the script setup section? First off, you will realize that I am using the store, right? I am importing the store, as you can see here, and I am accessing one instance of the store using use employee store. And if I take you to the store one more time, you see that I have named the store. The function is use employee store. This is the reason why I can, use this use employee store here to get one instance to the store. And then when the component is mounted, I am going to call the fetch employees function defined in the store. And when the delete employee is invoked using that button that we have in the template, this button, what I am going to do, instead of communicating with our backend API directly, I am going to use the function delete employee defined in the store. So in the store, we have this delete employee, we have this fetch employees, right? And now inside of the home, I want to replace these two to get replace these two with the call to, the two functions inside of the store. And how am I going to do that? I am going to create one instance of the store and then use that instance to, invoke the two functions, right? And again, through this instance, not only I have access to the functions, but also I have access to the state, as you can see, to the employees array. So these are the two, refactorings that I need to make to the home view. So let's do this. I am going to get rid of this, right? And I am going to write the template. The only difference is when you are going to loop through the, employees, you are going to loop through a store.employees, and the rest is the same. So let's write the script section now. Let's import the store and let's create one instance of the store, and then we are going to write the unmounted. I need to uncomment these code, by the way, and then the delete section. So I'm going to remove this. I want to get rid of this code. I want to snooze my code completions coming from Windsurf, and I want to uncomment these lines of code, right? So if you take a look, right now for fetching employees and for deleting employees, we're using this instance of the store. And we are using the same instance when we want to iterate through the employees. So this is the way to do this from now on. And the data for this page is being maintained inside of the single store that we have right now. So other pages, other components, if they want to access data, they do not need to communicate with the backend API themselves. They can do whatever they want. They can fetch the data they want from this single store. Now let's continue talking about the next refactoring. So I'm going to skip the explanation part because I have already talked about this. You can, stop the video here and read this yourself. The next one is add employee. Let me show you what add employee does right now. So we have another page, add employee. It has this function that communicates, with the backend API. It sends a post request using the value inside of the reactive variables, and then it redirects the user to the home or to the root of the application. And this function, add employee, is used for handling the form submission. But things will be different now. The only change that we need to make to the add employee is, inside the script tag. So there will be no change on the template part because the template part is only using this add employee reference. So all we need to do is to change this. Now let's take a look. We are again importing the store, and then we have our two, reactive variables because we want to do two-way data binding, right, with those inputs. We have our router to, route the user to the root of the application. And then we have the instance of our store. And then inside of the, function, what we need to do is to use our instance of the store called the add employee function, and then pass in the object with two keys, name, position, and two values. The values inside of the the two reactive variables. And then again, we redirect the user to the root of the application. So what I need to do right now is to get rid of this piece of code and write the new version of the script setup. Let me import my store. Let me create the reactive variables, name and position. Then I'm gonna create my router, and then I need an instance to my store. After that, I declare the add employee, and inside of the body of this function, I use the, function inside of the store, and then I redirect the user to the home page of the application. Again, I am going to skip the explanation because I think we have discussed what is going on, inside of the script block. And of course, you can, stop the video to read this yourself. Now, the next update that we need to make goes in the edit employee. So let me show you the edit employee right now. So if you take a look at the edit employee, you again see that we have two functions, fetch employee and update employee. And these two functions already exist in our store. So what we need to do is to remove these and use the store. And yeah, we've got, a form, and the submission of the form is handled using the update employee, right? We have already discussed these. And then what is happening is that when the update completes, we're going to redirect the user to the home page. Now, again, the update that we need to make is very similar. We are going to import our store. We need our route and router. We use the route to get the ID of the employee that is being updated. The ID is inside the route. We use router to redirect the user. We have our instance of the store. We have our reactive variables for two-way data binding. We have unmounted. Inside of the unmounted, we are calling the fetch employee by ID inside of the store, and we are passing in the ID of the employee coming from the route. And then we are setting the values of those two reactive, variables, name and position. We are going to set the values based on the value inside of this object, selected employee, inside of the store. So let me show you what is happening. If I take you to my store one more time, you see that we have the selected employee in our state. And initially, it has been set to null. But when you fetch one single employee based on the ID, right, you get the employee from the backend API, and then you set this selected employee using the data you get from the backend. So it means that inside of this selected employee now, you have the data of an employee whose ID has been received here or has been passed to this fetch employee by ID. And we know that inside of this, edit employee page, the ID is coming through the route. So if, for example, this ID is, I don't know, like 2 for the employee whose ID is 2, we are going to get that employee, and then we are going to set the selected employee to the employee we got, to the employee whose ID is 2, right? So this is what we are doing inside of the unmounted. And that helps with the two-way data binding. So whenever the component mounts or is attached to the DOM, we get the information or the object, the employee object from our backend API based on the ID, and then we set the values of those two reactive variables. And that causes the template to update. So the name and the position of that employee that has been fetched is going to show up inside of those two inputs. And then inside of the update, again, we are going to call the update employee from our store. We are going to pass the ID of the employee we want to update. We are going to pass the values, new values for name and position, and then we are going to redirect the user to the root of the application. So this is the change that we need to make inside of edit employee, right? This is the script tag. I'm going to remove this, and I am going to write the code for, write the code of this new version of the edit employee. Again, importing our store, creating our route and router, creating our instance to our store, creating our reactive variables for two-way data binding, name and position, calling fetch when the component is mounted, and setting the value of those two reactive variables so that the two-way data binding shows those values inside the inputs on the template, and then calling the update employee with the ID of the employee we want to update and the payload, which, I mean, when I say payload, I mean the values inside of those two reactive variables. So this is the next, update that we need to make. And again, I am going to skip the explanation because I have already talked about this. You can skip this if you want. Right now, what we have done is this. So we have moved the logic for fetching data and mutating data, like adding employee, updating, deleting, and fetching data, getting one employee based on its ID or getting, all of the employees. We have moved that logic to a centralized place, to the store. Previously, the logic was here and there, right? Was scattered throughout the application inside of components or pages. Right now, they have been moved into the store, and now components are cleaner. They focus only on the UI and user interaction and their sole centralized focus responsibility. The API logic is centralized. It is easier to maintain because it is only inside one code file, and of course it is reusable. All you need to do is to create one instance of your store and start using your API communication logic. And a state is shared globally, ensuring consistency across the app, and Pinia's reactivity automatically updates the UI when data changes. So this is what we needed to do, right? I mean, in episode 6, we introduced Pinia, and in episode 7, we removed the API integration code from views, and we stored that logic inside of the store. Now everything is going to be functional. If I click on add employee, I can add my own, name, and I get my name here. And I can edit this because I like to be a software architect. I'm going to update this. So I am able to, edit. I am able to get a list of employees. I am able to add a new employee. And of course, I am able to delete employees as well. And everything is, managed using Pinia, the state of the application, and the API communication logic is inside the store. And that's it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. If that's the case, please give it a thumbs up and stay tuned for the next one.